All right, guys, I'm here with Robbie from War on Drugs. We're here to talk about these badass keyboards you've got. Vintage keyboards, new keyboards, MIDI, pedals, guitar pedals. The whole thing is this crazy ecosystem. So what have you got going on here?
We have 4 stereo keyboard channels going here. The one is this Nord Electro 6 HP 73. Another channel, I have these Prophets, the Prophet 12 and this Rev 2. Which are all there we go. Over here is kind of like my main workstation right here, and I keep a sort of a sustain pedal for all, and then a sustain pedal for just the Nord alone, just a sustain pedal. And this volume controls an MPC back here. These two send notes to the MPC. These ones control some program changes to this mastermind. And then I got a panic switch here. And over here I got volume for a Prophet, Rev 2, the Prophet 12, the Rev 2, and volume for the Prophet 12. Most of it's pretty mapped out of like hitting certain marks, but it's also, you know, we're playing all the real instruments here, so I can kind of like, however I'm feeling more expressive, I can kind of like, you know, mess with the low pass filters here, or I can add some effects here, feather in another instrument I wasn't thinking about, or I got the pedals and all these things. So it's, there's a lot of freedom in there.
Are you typically using like all of these every single night?
I will, on this Wurlitzer, I will activate all of these pedals all at once at some point in time, My go-tos, I have this Juliana, the Walrus Audio, it's a stereo chorus. I use that on most tunes nowadays. It's kind of like on a set-on state. You know, it's pretty subtle, but it just gives that little bit of width in chorus. I love this Lex right here. When you're just doing like the amount of shows that we do a year, you want it to sound like the same thing you're making a record with. We have 107 channels going out to front of house. And they get recorded every night too. So when we make a live record, it's there. We're not going in and like, oh yeah, we kind of cheated here, but like, we don't really cheat on anything. We just kind of, with the exception of, I haven't found an acoustic piano, you know, that I can go travel with on stage and tune and like send MIDI and all the other junk to, but.
Now the string ensemble, the thing you've got up there. That is a cool old bird you've got there.
This guy's great. Yeah, this is a Selena string ensemble. It's a beast. It's really heavy. But nothing cuts through a mix like it. You can sample it. I have sampled it in super high fidelity, and it just doesn't do the same thing. It's something about the being electronic. You know, electricity kind of going through stuff. And when you have, you know, the amount of channels and guitar and all the stuff that we have going on, it's like really important that if you want something to cut through, that you can actually get to that point, because otherwise it would just become a big soup, you know, if everything's kind of just.
So you're using that thing probably like for some lead line type stuff, some high things as you want to kind of cut some melodic things.
Totally, it's like, it just kind of like puts air into something, like lets something lift off.
And are you ever actually manipulating the MPC itself during a show, or is it pretty much preset with stuff that's being triggered?
No, it's pretty much just triggering samples that I have on there. So when I say that we do our best to kind of like bring all the instruments from the studio in, becomes a certain limit, you know, where you kind of have something like, well, maybe I want to be able to use this and this, and it's just, sometimes it's effective for me to be able to play piano and fly in a little bit of a sample of something on the MPC, and
because you were telling me like building this whole rig, like you working with your tech guys and building this thing, like you were taking hours at home building it, but obviously all of it stems from, like you say, the creative process. Like you guys cut an album, you want it to sound like that when you're on stage. So this thing is mimicking that sound, like getting the right sounds for the song.
And it's a lot of it's about the vibe. It's not necessarily like resampling the song. It's about getting the spirit of the song and being able to like, oh, I'm in this style of this sonic palette that these songs on the record are, and I can go all sorts of places, and everyone can go different places with it.
You talked a little bit about it. The preamp in there, you had some guys, I mean, they like gutted it and built this with some modern technology in it.
Right, so yeah, this is This is a Warnock Research Wurlitzer preamp.
Yeah.
So Tim Warnock gave me one of these earlier ones. It's for a 200 Whirly, and it's just completely silent preamp, so you can just plug it straight into the board with tons of pedals, and it doesn't make a lot of noise, and it's
you can really crank it, and
it's the greatest thing for touring. I've told so many musicians to get them, and everyone who's got one is pretty happy. So.
Yeah. Well, Robbie, thanks so much for letting us come and geek out with you today. I have loved this. I mean, this is like an incredible setup you have here. Just thanks for spending time with us, man. I'm here with Anthony from The War on Drugs. I want to hear a little bit about your rig, your keyboards. I see some pedals. You've got a nice setup here to play some keys, but you're playing guitar mainly in this band. But of course, this band is infinitely cool because you guys have a ton of keyboard players. You're singing a little bit too. But tell me about your keyboard rig.
Well, compared to Robbie's world, my rig is very simple. I have an ARP Quartet and a Korg Lambda. The Quartet is running through MXR Phase 90, Boss Digital Delay, and this Digitech Reverb, and then also the Maleko Goat Keeper. And then the Lambda is just going through the same Digitech, or a duplicate of Digitech Reverb. And they both go DI, they go through volume pedals, and that's it. That's what I work with.
Give us a taste of some of the combinations with the pedals that you might use.
Well, the reverbs are always on. The delay is always on. The phaser I will use sometimes just to get a little motion from the quartet. I'll use, this is a sound that I'll use at the beginning of I Don't Want to Wait. Just kind of I can't hear it, but it should sound.
Right.
It
sounds beautiful, guys.
Kind of like almost a feedbacky kind of thing, and I'm pitch bending with the delay just by changing the delay time.
And now, similar to Robbie's thing, you have a combination of old and new. You've got the vintage keyboards.
Yep.
What makes you still want to use these?
Honestly, it just kind of started. Like when I first joined the band, I was using a not the Quartet, but the Prelude, which is essentially the same keyboard.
Sure.
And it's just because that was what has been used on the records a lot. Also very similar to the Selena. I'm more of a guitar player first rather than keyboard player. So I could never, I can't really wrap my brain around a Prophet or a Juno. So this is very simple to me, where it's just sort of tabs like violin, cello, and then affecting those sounds to change and make them into something beyond what they are on the keyboard, Right. I really like the Lambda because of these tone controls. You could have the string and organ sound. I use this for the intro of Under the Pressure. And just you could really be pretty dynamic with how you're setting that. I don't know. I can work with that a lot easier rather than I'm going to create all these sounds, but rather than just here's a simple sound. How can I do something to affect it, to make it something more complex?
Right. And I would imagine you guys, your process in the studio, overdubbing, adding a lot of different colors and sounds. So having multiple keyboards means you can get closer to your record. You can get because I'm assuming a lot of what you're doing is, adding colors, adding some icing on the cake type sounds.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean the records, I think everyone thinks of this band as such a guitar-centric band, but it's equally as keyboard-centric. Yeah, if not more so.
Yeah, I think more so. I think you guys should be the War on Keyboard band because you guys have got enough. That's for sure.
One new development, I'm sure Robbie told you about it too, is on this tour was sending MIDI all around the stage and sending clock around the stage, which I'm getting over here with the Goat Keeper, which has been really sweet because that allows us to actually have stuff pulsing at the same, all together. I don't know what it's getting right now, but it should. This is kind of the thing I'll do for Victim.
Right.
locked tremolos and stuff.
Thanks so much, man, for spending some time with me and telling us about your rig.
Yeah, thank you.
Hope you all have a great show, and thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm here with Eliza from War on Drugs. What's going on? I want to know a little bit about your rig, about the choices you've made for some of the gear, how this setup works. Just tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, I'm the newest member of the band, so I feel like a lot of my choices are based around like what was already so awesome about this band, and just figuring out how to like find my places to just kind of elevate and make it more awesome. But I sort of have, I guess, 3 main keyboard sort of situations. I have the Nord stage, which I love. For a lot of the other bands I played in, it's like, you know, it's just like the ultimate utility player where you can get it to be so many things. So like I have it little mono synth programs in there, and then I have like, you know, my Wurlitzers and some synth engine stuff. And you know, I play the Nord like everybody plays the Nord. It's all super programmed and in splits and all of that stuff, so it's just exactly what I need it to be. I'm also using the Nord to trigger the SPD. So I have these like X'd off keys where if I play those keys, it will trigger samples, so I know not to play these.
And I see you have a drumstick over there too, attached on the side.
I do have a drumstick, but that's for the cowbell.
Oh.
That's not for the keys. That's
See,
for my cowbell.
My brain went to the SPD, but the cowbell.
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
of
because
course.
For one of the tunes, we want to be, it's like samples that are sort of changing as the song changes, so I need to be able to play them live.
Yes.
And so I need to be able to sample them as I'm also playing a Wurlitzer.
It's very cool.
So I have the SPD going through the Nord, and then I have like the Nord running through the Eventide Triceratops and the Strymon Volante, because it makes everything sound better.
Yeah.
You know, like the Nord already sounds cool, but it sounds like a digital thing, and so this sort of like warms it up and makes it sound cool and fun. It just takes it from being like a really great digital recreation into something feeling like it's
alive.
It's alive, that it's this real thing, and I can sort of like play with it like it's an analog instrument in some way. I can, you know, do some knob turning. I also do some knob turning with some of the onboard stuff.
Yeah.
I love aftertouch. I'm an aftertouch person.
Yeah.
So I love to like, you know, aftertouch a flanger or something like that, or do like a little manual vibrato. So that's that. I just sort of run it through. I know that Robbie has like 70 pedals.
Yeah.
He has the ultimate signal chain. Mine is much more simple, because of the role I play.
Right.
So here is the strike fet, which I'm using to replace the prelude. So just like classic fat string synth kind of sound. It's a little bit more, it has more capabilities than the prelude. I think like if you had to ask me to pick, I love the sound of the prelude. It's like a perfect sound, but this is awesome, and it's super fun to play with, and there's all kinds of fun little, you know, knob toying that you can do.
And what's triggering that? Is that coming from the Nord?
Yeah, the Waldorf is being triggered by the Mellotron.
The Mellotron, okay.
So the really fun thing about that is that then that means that I can ride the Mellotron up underneath the strike fet, so I can be blending the strike fet and the Mellotron sounds together, which is super fun. So the strike fet, although it's being sort of MIDI controlled by the Mellotron, it has its own audio channel. The Mellotron and the Juno share an audio, so the Juno was modded to be able to accept an input. So the Mellotron actually runs through the Juno, which means that I can use these amazing Juno choruses and sort of like share a little bit of a signal chain that way, which is super fun. And again, I can be blending Juno sounds and Mellotron sounds and doing all kinds of like cool things that are, you know, just make it all so much more fun to do. When you're playing as many shows as we're playing, you don't want it to be all program changes. You don't just want to be like, you know, clicking over to the next thing and then you're doing the exact same thing.
Sure.
You know, I think there's a lot of room for improvisation And there's a lot of moments in the set where we're sort of all following each other and figuring out where we're going. And that means that like sometimes it's going to be appropriate for me to like ride the strike fet in a really heavy way, and sometimes it's going to be appropriate for me to ride the Juno in a different way. So you want to have that kind of versatility, but also I don't want to be like dialing absolutely everything in for a 2.5-hour set every night. So I have like a certain level of stuff that's just like, you know, here's my old skin patch and I know what that is and it's ready to go, but I can play it a little bit differently every night. So those are those sort of like the Melatonin, Strike Fet, Juno is one world, the Nord is one world, and then my last little keyboard world is actually a vocal world. So one of the things that I really love to do, and I think that the guys were really interested in having me add, was I can play my voice like a synthesizer. That's something that I love to do and I have done over the years. So a lot of what I'm doing is just, you know, singing harmonies. But a lot of what I'm doing is sort of using this Voice Live 3 Helicon pedal. And I think I use it differently than other people use it. I kind of like override its main function to just be a manual keyboard. So I'm never just like asking it to sing low and sing high. I'm always manually playing harmonies. And so there are moments in the set where there's sort of like what would be maybe a synth solo, but instead of it being just a synth solo, I'm sort of singing that synthesized solo. So I'm triggering this, singing and playing, and sometimes I even have my actual vocal signal completely muted, and all you're hearing
that
is this, and I can like add, you know, the Voice Live 3 is great because it has all kinds of like flangers and phasers and delays and delays and stuff, so that I can make it sound like a straight vocoder.
Sure.
You know?
I'd love to hear a little bit of that.
Yeah.
If you would want to.
Yeah, it'd be super
awesome.
fun.
I'm here with John from War on Drugs. Tell me a bit about your rig.
So we'll start with, I guess, the organ setup. Yeah, it's an Electro 3, so I believe in the Electro 4 and beyond, there are physical drawbars on the Nord.
Yes, that's right.
I like the Electro 3. I've always had it. I have my settings in there, my sounds in there. So I just ended up getting this thing, which is it's I think Krumar makes it, the Italian company, but it's an Arduino board. You actually have to program it yourself. And yeah, it's a big part of the way I play organ in this band. It's pretty textural. It's like a rhythm instrument, and it's pretty textural. So I'm always messing with drawbars in the middle of sounds. The organ, actually 3 different outs. There's a DI, which I use for one very specific song where I'm not playing organ, where I have sort of a sample in there, a DX7 sample, so that doesn't sound good through the Leslie or the amp. Then Leslie is used for most of the organ stuff. There's some songs where I'm doing combo organ. We used to tour with a Vox Jaguar, but again, we just tried to slim down the rig a little bit. I was only using it on a few songs, so now I just use the Vox sound in here. But again, to have it sound like we want it to sound, that doesn't go through the Leslie, that goes through this little Blues Junior amp over here. So this ABC box, great company in Australia, Loopy makes them. It's really reliable, really quiet. I have it going into this Analog Outfitters box. Analog Outfitters is a company that doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. They were this little boutique company in Illinois, I think. They made awesome amps, really great amps, and they made these these Leslie adapter boxes for 1/4-inch inputs. It basically takes a 1/4-inch in and then goes out to Leslie, and you can do the speed switching. Speed switch a lot in this band. Again, it's like that rhythm texture approach. I do a lot of that just to try to keep the momentum going in the organ part, and that pedal is great for it. Have a volume pedal for that.
I see some expressions.
And then I should have mentioned, before going to the outputs, the organ goes through these 2 pedals. This is my favorite fuzz pedal, period. Especially it's my favorite fuzz pedal for keyboards. It's made by this awesome Mexican pedal company. I think they're out of Tijuana, called Paradox Effects, and this is their pedal called the Ionizer. It's basically 4 big muff circuits in one box, and you select through them. For this band, I like the silicone circuit or whatever, but they all sound great. There's a lot of tone control, which is why I like this pedal a lot. And yeah, I just use it to give a little boost for some moments. Just has a nice, nice
it just gives
sound
that drive, like if you went and turned the drive up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then this is a Flint pedal, Strymon Flint pedal that uses reverb. Yeah, it's just a nice sounding, very subtle reverb. Both of my keyboards here, the Prophet 6 and the Juno 106, each go through an avalanche run, which is a pedal I love for synths. I don't know, it's reverb and delay combined, and it's great, especially for the sounds I'm doing in this band, which are like these sort of wide, floaty, cascading pads. It's just the perfect reverb and delay, like just all over the place. It's great. Juno 106 also goes through the chorus is broken on this Juno 106. And I don't know how much you dealt with these, but the chorus is always breaking on a Juno 106, and you always have to get it fixed with the chips, and everyone's always looking for the chips. I just found this great retrosonic chorus pedal that I think it uses a CE1 chip or something, like the old Roland. I don't know. It itself uses some old Roland chorus chip, but I just use that in place of the Roland, of the Juno onboard chorus. So this keyboard controls this keyboard. So anytime, I have individual volume pedals if I want to sort of fade one in, but most of the time I'm playing pads that I've kind of built sounds that work together. Like the Prophet 6 and Juno 106 are making these pads together, and it's sort of like this extra lush layer by combining the two.
Yep. All right, John, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for showing me your rig. Super awesome. Why don't you play us a little bit of something?
Sure.
Else?
Yeah.